Hi everyone, how are you? It's Emmanuel here, and I'm glad to be live again. So I hope you're enjoying an amazing and powerful start to 2017. And I already put this on a status, but I just want to say to you guys, thank you very much for your connection and the time that we had in 2016. To everybody that I've had an opportunity to connect, and to anybody that I've even been blessed to work with over the year, I want to say thank you very much. It's been an amazing opportunity. I look forward to giving even more in 2017 and assisting you to acquire and achieve the results that you desire in your life. And as usual, I'll be kicking off the year by aiming to get in at least one a day from Monday through to Friday, and try and get at least 5 Facebook Lives per week, attacking and talking about the topics that you request and discuss, also topics that are highly relevant that I'm working during the week with in reference to my clients. So this topic that I'm discussing today, not only has it been something that I got requested, but it's also something that I'm working with clients in particular on a weekly basis. So this is highly relevant. And really what we're talking about is being overly giving or overly nice, or you could label that overly altruistic. So if you perceive there have been times in your life when any of the areas, whether it's physical, financial, mental, spiritual, social, vocational, family, where you feel that you've overgiven to others and you haven't gotten an equal exchange, or you built up resentment feeling that other people are using you, well, this video will be very highly relevant to you. Or if there's somebody that you care about or know about that you watch this dynamics occur on a regular basis, then feel free to share this with them. As always, you're welcome to interact during this live broadcast and click the like or the thumbs up or the love heart or whatever it is that's relevant for you. So I know which parts of this are really sitting with you guys, what's resonating and what you'd love to see more of. So without further ado, let's get into the topic. Now, I don't know about you, but growing up, one of the things that really got droned into me was the idea of be a good person, be a nice person, be nice to other people, be good to other people, treat them right. Then I'm now 32. As I've grown up throughout life, I've realized that it doesn't really matter how good I try and be to as many people as possible. I have people that screw me over, and no matter what I do, I have people that feel that I screw them over. So I wanted to find out, why was this occurring? Because no matter how hard I tried, no matter how much I tried to be a great or good person, I'd find that people would be able to label me good and bad throughout all aspects of my life. So if you have tried or attempted to be all positive, all nice, all good, never bad, and I think that's Rax that's just joined in. Great to see you on board, Rax, and looking forward to touching base with you. I believe it's next week. But if you've tried that, what you'll probably find is that you never ever, and hi Steve, nice to have you on board, you never end up getting that result. So it's futile and silly to think that you're going to live life and be all good, never bad, all right, never wrong, all positive, never negative. And I'll explain why. If we look and define the word nice, every human being has a different version of that. So if I was to say to you what you perceive to be nice, and I brought 10 people in a room kind of for a group study, and I asked them, if a person was to do this, would you all label this to be nice? I'm going to get a mixture of reactions. So what you label as nice is completely contrary and different to what somebody else labels as nice. So as we go throughout life, when people get what's most valuable and meaningful and important to them, and you help them with that, they'll call you nice. When you contradict that, they'll call you mean. So no matter what you do throughout life, I know within my family, I've done things my mum said that was quite nice, and my dad said that was ridiculous, and I hated that. So even within my family dynamics, I know in my relationships, I've done things where my partners have gone, that was really mean, and I thought, well, that was necessary for you to grow. I was challenging you to help you. And they thought I was mean, and I thought I was being nice. So the very label of nice is almost impossible for us to define, because it's completely dependent on a person's unique set of values. So you're never going to be nice to everybody. And the idea that you're going to go through life with this model that you're going to be a really good or nice person sometimes means contradicting what's truly most valuable to you. And when that occurs, if you choose somebody else over you and put them above you and minimize yourself, I'm going to call this a center line here. To the degree that you put them on a pedestal, you also put your values in a pit. And whenever you do that, that same degree is the amount of resentment that you build towards them and you for not being authentic. And this is quite often the case when I'm working with clients and they have this persona that they always have to be nice. Because everybody has a unique and different set of values, they constantly find themselves living outside of what's most valuable and important and authentic to them, living for everybody else and constantly sacrificing and giving other people what they want at the sacrifice of their own life. And sometimes they'll say to me, but I'm being a nice person. And I'll say, no, every person is both nice and mean, good and bad, positive and negative in every moment in space and time. And I'll highlight to that specific person how while they're being overly nice to somebody else, they're being ridiculously mean to themselves and what's most important. And they're storing up that resentment and they are unappreciating themselves and the other person until eventually it all pops and explodes. And that's usually when you hear somebody say, well, I did this for you and you didn't do this for me, etc. Know that every single moment in space and time, we look to have equal exchanges with other people. And the reason that we do this is because anytime we have an equal exchange, we feel that we got what was most valuable to us, and the person that we exchange with feels that they got what was most valuable to them. Whenever we do that, both you and the person that you're exchanging with, whether it's your service, your time, your friendship, your finances, whatever it is, when you have that equal exchange, you both want to exchange in the future. And the respect is at the highest degree. When you perceive that you're giving something up for somebody else, and it's not something that you value, you may not notice it, but your unconscious mind stores a file that says that was an unequal exchange. And you may not notice it there and then, but if you keep storing these files and keep doing things for someone else, then one day you have something that's truly valuable and meaningful to you, and you ask them for a hand or assistance or to help you out of there, and they don't, watch every one of those files pop up one after the other. And you'll have a feeling inside of you that says, hold on a sec, but I did X, Y, and Z for you. So our minds unconsciously store every single exchange, and it's wiser to have an equal and a balanced exchange than to constantly give and minimize your worth and find that later on when you ask that person for assistance or something, and sometimes whatever it was that you asked them to assist you with is just not in their values. So in their model of the world and the way that they see it, it just wasn't valuable. They may not even have known how valuable that was to you. But the minute they said no, all of a sudden now you have a contradiction and you have a challenge between them and you. So I recommend a fair exchange. I recommend making sure that you get what's valuable to you while learning to get what's most valuable to others. If you learn how to do that in the business world, then you will love and appreciate business because you're constantly getting paid to give other people what they love while you get what you love. So your 8 hours of your day becomes a way of exchanging and really learning about other people and yourself and challenging yourself to learn the communication skills to find that sweet spot in the middle where everybody truly loves the exchanges that they're having. In a family dynamics, when you learn how to have an equal exchange with others, you increase their authenticity and their appreciation and understanding of them, while also making sure that they respect you and get a great insight as to what's truly most valuable to you. I have a few different ways in which I communicate with people. I know that whatever is most valuable and meaningful to a person is where they're most organized, disciplined, reliable, and focused. It's where they spontaneously spend their finances and where they're most energized. I know whatever's the lowest on their values is where they're unorganized, undisciplined, unreliable, unfocused, and they get drained and they feel dead when they do that. So when I find out what's truly most valuable and meaningful to my clients or others, one of the first things that I want to do is communicate in a way where I ask myself, whatever I want to offer them, how does that serve me? And how does that assist me to grow so that I have an equal exchange and I'm not going to store that unconsciously? I know in my relationship, Renee and I do the same thing. We constantly are trying to understand the other person and what's most valuable to them so we can find out how to do that. And I'll give you some examples right now because I'll also use the example. I'll quickly jump back to that point. If I had a child and I gave that child from the minute it was born absolutely everything, and I supported it and never challenged it at all, that child could turn 25, 30, 50, however old it is, and it would not be able to handle the world because it would have been over-supported and its strategy towards acquiring things. Know that as a baby, you don't know how to communicate and talk. So the minute you're born, in order for survival, you start using whatever strategy is necessary to acquire the things that are important to you. So you'll find that a baby will cry, and that'll become a strategy because it does that and then it gets what it wants. So if a child is overly supported throughout their lives, their strategy for acquiring things can be basically to cry, even if it's metaphorically like cracking the shits. And that becomes their strategy for getting things. Whenever you overly support somebody, emotionally or mentally or physically, etc., and you constantly give to them and you sacrifice to yourself, sometimes we feel like we're helping the person out and we puff ourselves up, but we actually rob them of accountability at the same time. Both occur. And sometimes, I know in the past, when I lived in Melbourne, I would have friends where I would say, you look like you're in trouble. Let's go for a coffee. And I'd sit down at Chappelle's or someplace at Chapel Street and I'd have a coffee with them and listen to them talk. And then I'd give them some worthwhile advice, only to find out that a week later, they would call me and say, can we talk again? I really need some of that advice. And when I sat down and spoke to them, I'd say, so how did you go with the piece of advice I gave you last time? They go, I didn't really use it. And now all of a sudden, I started to build resentment because I felt that I'd given my time, I'd given my energy and my advice, and this person had not used any of it at all. Not only had they not used it, now they wanted more of my time. And this wasn't an equal exchange because my mind was already foreseeing into the future and going, if they keep doing this, what the hell? I'm going to keep wasting my time, and I want to make sure you value my time. So after a while of that occurring, after a while of them constantly doing that, I realized that the first time we sat down, I thought that somebody may have been mean or something like that to them. But after they kept going back into that cycle and not learning and not using my advice, I realized they were part of a dynamic and they were also part of the problem they were telling me about, and that was absolutely necessary for their growth. So I found that eventually, whenever I work with clients, we end up cutting off those people and holding them accountable for their lives because we get sick and tired of being overly nice and helping them out, and they're not actually taking the advice, and all they're becoming is more dependent on us and juvenile and preventing them from growing and evolving. And quite often we cut them off, they've got two options now. Either they go to somebody else that doesn't value their time as much, just like we won't, and then use them as much as they possibly can, or they eventually just grow out of it and they're forced to take on the challenge. So I've got no problems with communicating to somebody that comes to me. Part of that's because I'm a human behavioral expert and saying, I'm not here to listen to your problems or your stories. I'm here to change your stories. And if all you want to do is sit down and have me talk to you, then there's going to be a certain period where I walk away because I find out that no matter how well my advice is or how good it is, you're not going to take it. And that's just going to keep occurring with friend after friend because people eventually hold you accountable. I would much rather work with you, because that's what I do as a job, and make sure that we guaranteed an outcome, because if that's the way that I actually treat my clients and I guarantee an outcome, I want to make sure that I treat you as a friend in no less a format of what I would treat somebody that I'm working with and how I would consult with them. So I want to treat them equally. Now, some people don't like that. Some of my friends want to sit there and utilize my time and just my knowledge and all of those things, but I hold them accountable. Now, if they don't like that, and I've communicated as best as I can in their values, and they still just want to project their values onto me, I'll cut them off. I will work as hard and efficiently as possible to communicate to others in their values to create an equal exchange. But if they want to have one where they're above me and I'm below them, I will cut them off straight away and make sure that they know that's not a dynamics that I'm willing to invest time in. I'm too mentally strong and too emotionally strong to take on any kind of emotional challenges like that, or emotional abuse, you may call it, from anyone else. So I highly recommend the same for you. If you think that people are zapping your energy, then you're not communicating to them an equal balance and holding your boundaries. And that's really important, because in every area of life where you don't learn how to do that, you'll just attract that challenge again. And I put some posts today for the week, and one of them said, so quite often I work with clients that run out of relationships or run away from relationships. They didn't necessarily learn what they needed to. So maybe the partner that they were with was overly narcissistic and projecting onto them. They were overly altruistic and trying to be nice, which means fulfilling this person's values, but at the sacrifice to theirs. And as they were doing that dynamics, they kept building up resentment and resentment and resentment because they were ignoring the authentic self and who they were. And eventually they cracked it and told this person they didn't need them anymore. But the person that was overly narcissistic was necessary to piss them off enough to realize how much they weren't actually expressing their worth. Because if somebody over supports us, we feel comfortable and we can't challenge them. But if they overly challenge us in our perceptions, then we'll feel that we actually have to take them on. So I've worked with clients before that ran away from their relationships. They didn't face them, they didn't address it, they suppressed it and then ran away. Then when they got into the next relationships, because they had the same resources, they never outgrew the past resources, they're in the same sphere of awareness, they simply attracted the same challenges again. And in some clients, again and again and again and again. So either you grow through it or you stay with the same sphere of awareness that attracts the same challenges. So I highly recommend whatever relationship your dynamics in, or whatever dynamics you're in all of your relationships, whether it's business or family or a relationship with a partner, whatever it is, in all aspects of life, learn how to communicate and have a balance. Now, here's some tips and resources to assist you to do that. In fact, just before I mention some examples, so let me get to these examples first. So if Renee was to walk in the house, and if anyone has seen my videos before, this may be a relevant example, you may have heard this before, but if my girlfriend Renee was to walk into the house, there are three kinds of exchanges her and I can have: caring, careful, careless. Caring is where I care enough about her values to communicate in them. Careless is where I care less about her values and more about myself. And careful is where I'm full of care for her values, but I reject my own. If she walked into the house and she'd been having challenges at work, and she works up in a high management role, and her highest values, the things that's most important to her, is sustainable fashion. Her second is family, her third is health and vitality, especially organic food and things like that. And part of the family involves me. My highest values is personal or human evolution, and the second highest value is health and vitality, and the third one is family. So our second and third are the same, but our firsts are very different. So imagine she walked into the house and I just started having a go at her, saying, "You've been grumpy all week. You've been completely moody. I'm sick and tired of your crap, blah, blah, blah." And I just started pushing her further and further down and exaggerating myself. If I did that, Renee's a very strong girl. Within minutes, she would say something and crack it in order to bring me back into a state of equilibrium and equanimity and balance between her and I. So that form of communication isn't going to work. It may work with somebody that's very weak-minded in reference to how they stand up for themselves, and there's somebody that hasn't learned how to stand their boundaries yet and still is learning that. But with Renee, I know that she's powerful, and that won't actually work with her. So if I did that, it's going to break the communication. It's going to build up resentment within her. If she builds up enough resentment, she'll want to leave and exit the relationship. So a careless exchange won't work. But if I'm completely careful and full of care, and when the minute she walks in the door, I'm, "Babe, please, 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 please," kind of act like a little puppy dog, that's not going to work either, because she's not going to respect me. She's going to perceive that she's the overdog, I'm the underdog, and when she looks at me, she's going to think, "There's no need for respect. This guy's like a little kid. I can pretty much get what I want." And I've even seen women in nightclubs, when I used to go clubbing, that very much knew when they were the overdog and a guy was an underdog, and they could use them and get drinks all night like a free credit card. So as human beings, we know whether the underdog or the overdog, and we can feel that. So if I'm overly communicating and I'm careful, full of care, usually, once again, I'm being nice by giving that other person what they want, minimizing what I want, and in doing so, I'm creating resentment inside of me. And resentment, for those of you that aren't aware, creates disease and disorder in the body all the way down to cell entropy. So I wouldn't really recommend that. But if Renee walked into the house and I had maybe candles going, organic food, because that's one of her second highest values, I spent some time relaxing with her because family and connecting with me is one of her highest values. And I said, "Babe, I know you've been having a lot of challenges in this aspect of work. I work with clients in reference to that. I'd be more than glad to assist you so you could overcome this area and make sure that you actually could get back into the part that you love. Would you be interested in spending half an hour with me?" Now let's have a look at that form of communication. It wasn't careless and it wasn't careful, because I wasn't minimizing what's valuable to me. I wasn't exaggerating what was valuable to me, and same with her. So at the end of that exchange, both her and I are going to feel highly fulfilled, and space and time is going to dissipate. Because you know, when you do what you love and love what you do, you feel highly energized and you lose space and time, and at the end of it, you feel great. We're both going to feel that way because her first three values were fulfilled, as were mine. The more of those exchanges we can have in a relationship, the less we're going to store resentment towards the other person to rip them off the pedestal and see them as an equal. The less we're actually going to have disease and disorder in our body in reference to them, and the greater the potential of that relationship having a longevity, because we actually feel that we appreciate them and it's an equal exchange, and we want to continue exchanging with them. So know, in space and time, in any of the relationships throughout your life, wherever you're overgiving, you have the benefit of assisting people, but you also hold them juvenile dependent and prevent them from being able to grow and rob them from getting some of the greatest resources in their life. Funnily enough, Mike, who just put some thumbs up there, is a very generous friend of mine. And Mike Al, if you see him below there, constantly I've seen assist people, and sometimes because he's done well financially in his life and made sure that he's invested wisely, has had people take advantage of that because they've become highly dependent on him. And as he's exaggerated his worth and minimized theirs in terms of the way that they see him, he's constantly felt resentful towards those people, because I know that I've seen a few statuses where he's asking the question, why is it that close people to me keep using me? And that's because of that dynamics that I discussed. So if you go back through the video, Mike, you're going to see that dynamics. know that overly supporting people makes them more childlike, makes them, you know me too well. I do, and you're actually a top bloke and someone that I hope to have a coffee with lately because we haven't for a while. But that creation of overly giving is actually creating juvenile dependence and childlike behavior in other people, and then it's preventing them from expanding their sphere of awareness and preventing them from growing. The very thing that Mike Al had to do in certain situations to help him expand and grow. Now, there's a saying, it's a religious saying, and I don't partake by religion, but I do love this saying in the study of it. If you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. One of the things that I've invested a large amount of my time, and one of the reasons I look to have an equal exchange with others, I want to teach them how to fish. At the end of my life, I don't want to have people that were highly dependent and juvenile dependent on me, whether in any of the 7 areas of life, whether it's physical, financial, mental, spiritual, social, vocational, family, even when I have kids in the future. I want to give people a present and something that's even greater than anything I could have ever given them, which is the ability to be self-sufficient and manage their own life. And I know in my life that it's challenges that have given me the opportunity to do that, because when I overcome a challenge, I move to the next sphere of awareness and management in that area of life. So I aim to support people by having a little bit of time listening, but then challenge them by giving them the exact tasks that would allow them to achieve their results. And right in that perfect dynamics, I increase my self-worth, increase my appreciation. They increase their other worth, which is the worthiness of me, and the appreciation of themselves. So both self-worth and other worth increases for both of us, and we can both hold on to the maximum exchange rate and appreciate each other and continue to add to that relationship. And I know that in the future, if I'm not there, that person has a much higher probability of taking on challenges, feeling much more self-worth, appreciating themselves and the universe and what they're capable of. So if you find yourself overly giving to others, a great exercise for you, which actually really assists, and I give this to my clients on a weekly basis, take an area of your life where you feel that you're overgiving, maybe finances to certain friends, etc. Then write down 10 drawbacks and disservices to yourself and 10 drawbacks and disservices to that other person in all 7 areas of your life and theirs. So that's physical, financial, mental, spiritual, social, vocation, and family. You'll end up with 70 for yourself and 70 for them, 140 all up, ways in which your mind will re-neurologically program itself, which is the connections between your thinking and feeling and acting. And when you've done that, you will make much more rational decisions. The word rational comes from ratio. And when you have a ratio of 1 positive to 1 negative, you have all the puzzle pieces to make a rational decision. But if you're perceiving more negative than positive in not assisting others and being overly nice and giving them what they want, then you'll make an irrational decision based on seeing more positives than negatives. But later on, after you do that and stack that up a few times to keep minimizing yourself, you'll eventually bring that ratio back into balance when you see the other side and the negatives of it towards yourself and them, when that cycle keeps playing out. So if you're looking to increase your power, if you're looking to really keep connections with people and hold on to their relationships and make sure that you have equanimity and quality and balance between you and others, I highly recommend doing that exercise so you see both sides, learn how to communicate effectively, have an equal exchange between you and them, so that you can have a longevity in your relationship where you actually appreciate each other instead of feeling like someone's using one another, etc. So I hope this has been valuable to you. You're not here to be overly nice. You're going to support and challenge people. Both of those are completely necessary for their evolution. Give yourself permission to do both. Communicate as effectively as possible to others in a way where you get what's valuable to you and they get what's valuable to them equally, so you're not storing unconscious resentment. But if the person has absolutely no interest whatsoever and all they want to do is get what's valuable to them, maybe it's time you cut them off and moved into a different level of relationship mastery. Because if you don't manage an area of your life, like being mentally tough enough, you're going to attract people and challenges to push you to learn how to get tough in that area. If there's anybody that's relevant or caring or meaningful to you, or if you're experiencing feeling like you're being overly nice and you want to get your power back, then I recommend you get in touch. PM me, private message me, or write into this post. Otherwise, share. And thank you very much for your time. Really looking forward to some powerful 2017 live broadcasts. If there's a topic that you'd like, inbox me and I'll put it into my calendar, and I'll also let you know when I do that topic. So as always, thank you for your time. Ciao.